Hi, I'm Delisa, the Dream Doula for Women, and I help women live their best life.
And I am Laura Stone, and I help high potential leaders increase their strategic impact and have the career and lives of their desire.
And tell us how you got started on this whole pathway.
Oh, it's believe it or not, when I was 16, I was tapped on the shoulder by my principal and said, I want you to go attend this youth leadership program. And I thought he made a huge mistake. I had huge imposter syndrome, and I was not the A+ student. I did a lot of sports, a lot of clubs. And I ended up going to this program, and it got me so interested with how leaders think, not what they do, but the thoughts that they think about. And ever since then, I've been intrigued with what makes a great leader great.
You know what's so fascinating about that? You're 16, you don't see yourself as a leader, but
Mm-mm.
obviously the principal saw yourself. He saw you as a leader because of all the things you were doing. So you were already doing the things a leader does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah. But I didn't see it because I later in my life, I'll just cut right to the chase in this. I found out that when I was in my early 30s, I had dyslexia. So I wasn't able to perform like all my friends who went to Harvard, Yale, Brown, all the great schools. Not to say that
Mhm.
University of Wisconsin wasn't a great school. It was, go Badgers. But I had to learn differently and I had to perform differently for me to keep up and make sure that I could be doing work in a way that really was up to par. And it was a hard journey, but it also made me who I am today. The weird part, Lisa, I just want to share this. I did books, like I wrote a book that was a picture book for executives. Who does that? But this is, I mean, just
I
for,
love that. I'm also an artist. So I see the young people reading these, what do you call them, graphic novels. And it's like,
yes,
oh, yeah, that's like picture books for young adults or adults. But they're not cartoons. They're like
no,
serious stories that are illustrated. And how cool is that? I mean, there used to be illustrated books.
they're brilliant. I mean, similar to you, I just read one to learn more about one of my bonus children. I just got remarried a few years ago. And they helped me understand through this book what they were going through. And it was brilliant. I would never have gotten it in any other way. The way I
Mm,
got it so poignantly this way through pictures.
wow. And
Yeah.
you've written two books. You have a third book in the works. By the time this goes live, the third book will be published. Tell us about your books.
So the first book, it was in 2016. It was right after the elections, and I was in a cab, and the cab driver said to me, I said to him, "How are you?" He goes, "Well, it's been a very tough week. We were in Dallas." He said, People have been harassed at bus stops, and they're coming into this Uber, and they're very unhappy." And I'm like, "Wow." He goes, "Well, why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here because I've been leading an executive program on purpose." And he's like, "God has brought you to me." I'm like, okay. And we had like 6 more minutes to the airport. And his name was Walter. And I was realizing I had the syllabus I was teaching at Harvard with this other professor. I had been doing work at Unilever, like once a month, these programs in London, and I had nothing for Walter. I said, "This is ridiculous." So the next morning, I did a storyboard and I wrote this book. If you can see this, it's called A Pocket Guide to Purpose. And it's basically pictures of all the things that are the highlight of the questions that we would work with our executives and students. And I said, this is the best and fastest way. And then I wrote a second book to go deeper into it because the first one was just about like wetting your feet and getting a good start on it. And the second book is really for leaders. And the third book is all about for teams. And the teams one's super exciting. It's almost like I should have written the first one of that, but I wasn't ready apparently. So this third one is all about how do you help teams think about the purpose of their team? What's the work that only they can do? And with that, this was the work that was the catalyst for CVS to help eliminate tobacco.
Oh, tell us more about that.
So that work ended up being when you brought the CEO in or the president at that time and all of his direct reports, they had never come together to think about what's the work that only we can do together, that no one else in the organization can do. And
Mhm.
during that process, we ended up asking questions that were about what's going to make each of us proud? What are the core paradoxes and or tensions that we must address? And really start looking at how do we actually break down and get very focused on that work. And the beauty of it was they ended up coming up with a purpose statement between you and me and everyone else who's listening. I was kind of like, oh, really? That's your purpose statement? But it was, we're here to help improve the health of our customers. Well, that flipped the switch.
CVS, that was their purpose. You and I
That
are
be
both like, what?
right. So, but if you think about it, they had cigarettes being sold behind the counter. And
Yeah.
so we had this moment, coming to Jesus moment in the meeting, where the team was so excited about what they were doing, but they also tried, there's something, you've heard the expression elephant in the room. There was a
Hmm.
huge elephant in this room. And I said, all
Yes.
right, all this paradox work and tension work makes huge sense. However, there's one small problem. If I let you walk out of this room and you don't discuss this very important detail, that everyone will know that you're full of it if you don't talk about the cigarettes that are behind those counters. It will be antithetical, it'll be opposite to what you're trying to put out there. So
Yes.
the room went silent.
Yeah,
And I'm
because
like,
they're probably thinking in their minds, tobacco brings us a lot of money.
$1.5 billion line item. So this was no small feat. And it took them 5 years to figure out how to replace that number. But they had just acquired a company called Caremark. Doesn't matter. I mean, long story short is they had to marry who they were becoming with
Mhm.
their purpose statement and their acquisitions. And when they finally did it, it was historic. And I remember having the conversation with the former president, and I said, a week later, you could tell he was really scared because purpose statements can be very scary. There's a
Yeah.
tension, and especially when you're doing it with a team, that they don't know how they're going to solve it yet. And that's okay. We just need to make progress. It's not about perfection. And he looked at me, he's like, like, what am I going to say to the board? $1.5 billion. I said, listen, you don't have to have the answers yet. You just need to start on the journey, know where the destination is, and get to this point and then get smarter. Because then you're going to upgrade and know you go this next step. So just to keep it simple, but so they finally put together skunk work plans that led to more work on it and figuring out how they're going to replace that 1.5, and they have done it and then some.
That's amazing. That's exactly, it's so interesting because I somehow in my mind, I think corporate coaching or executive coaching is different than coaching the individual, but that's exactly how each of us creates our life. If we don't have a purpose statement, we have a dream or a goal that we're not living yet,
Yeah,
that we have to just say, this is who we are and go there tiny little baby steps at a time.
that's all we can do day by day because we
Yeah.
can't do any more than that. And I think people get so frustrated that we're not further ahead. I'll speak to myself, like I'm I want things to be done yesterday. I want to be so far ahead. But then I have to come back to, what did I accomplish today?
Mm,
And then I can start looking at, I'm not so bad. I'm actually pretty good. I've been able to accomplish these things that help me advance. And I think
yes.
that's just so helpful and it's a much kinder, gentler way to live.
Mm. Oh, that's so beautiful. And before we hit record, you were talking about uh, inside the corporate structure, the people that get forgotten.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. All of you who are in middle management, you may be on the front lines, you might be a senior, but there's a group of people that are seasoned leaders that have been in their role for maybe 10 years, or they're up and comers. And every time I work with teams, I'm working with the C-suite or one below. But it's always about, how do we actually give that next level down more tools, more resources? And they have never been able to come up with a way of doing it. And so I'm finally launching this program and putting all the content that I teach only in the past has been to reserve for the C-suite, is
Hmm.
giving it all to that middle level, because they're the ones that have the hardest time. They are the most, when you do employee surveys, they're always the ones that scoring the lowest because they are crunched. They're trying to help the front line. They can see the right work that's supposed to be happening, but they've got these upper management who feel like they don't understand me, what I need. And they're in a very difficult place. So we want to alleviate the pain, bring more joy, make it easier for them to figure this stuff out so they don't have to go through what so many other people have gone through.
Yeah. And when companies restructure, are they the ones that get thrown out?
It
Not necessarily.
depends. Whoever's been paid the most, a lot of
Mm.
times it might be one level up. And the problem is, then they have to make up for it.
Oh,
So
it's
it's
not like they
more,
got promoted to that one level up. That person just gets eliminated.
they get eliminated and then more gets put on this middle management. So it's a
Hmm.
very tough place. And so every leader that I've been talking to about this program, there's CHROs, there's chief HR, human resource officers, or people who are head of talent. When they start hearing about this program, they're like, oh my God, this is great. This answers the question because we don't have something that's on a regular basis to keep people growing and learning and really sustenance, like giving them sustenance and energy. And so it's partly the content that we're teaching, but it's also the network of the people who are coming together that help each other. That's really quite amazing. It's very cool.
Do you think in most big corporations they have a synergistic connection between people that are doing similar level jobs, or are they all sort of competing with each other?
I think it's a both and. I mean, you've probably seen this too,
Hmm.
where there's a lot of people out there who are not in competition. They just want to do the best job they can do. They
Right.
like what they're doing. They want to help people grow. They want to, grow themselves and the organization. Then there are those who are focusing on the competition rather than the work, and we all know who those people are. And the problem is that they think they're doing the right thing, but what they're not realizing is the impact that they're having on everyone around them that they can see through them. So I
Yeah.
call it leaking. There's a great image where Nixon was shaking the hand of one of his people of the constituency while looking at his watch. And it was like, what's he really thinking about? That was like the most overt picture.
Oh
And
my
so,
God. That is a great image because obviously he's thinking about what's next.
and not there compared to Clinton, whether you loved him or hated him, if you were in a room with him, and I've heard it from a number of different people who did not like him, but by the time they met him, you couldn't help but being drawn into him. He was that charismatic. He made you feel like you were the only person in the room. So the leaders who get that this is about growth and development of everyone and moving ahead compared to those who are just about their own mindset makes all the difference. So the question is, what's the impact you want to have? What's the difference you want to make?
Nice. Oh my gosh. That's so beautiful. And you've taught these classes all around.
I've taught it all over the world. I've been very fortunate, and I've gotten to work with great companies, great people, great leaders. Did a number of courses like for Procter and Gamble, Unilever, Fidelity, um, and each place I go, I just find that it's about the humanity of the person. People think, oh, a big company that must be very different. They put their pants on the same way you and I do, and so the
Mhm.
question really is, why are they there compared to somewhere else? For some reason, they came there. And in these big companies, it's hard. It's really hard. And some of you will know this, is a big political game. I really believe that the whole politics can be done very differently. And when I was working with another company over in Europe, I had this one guy who said to me, I hate politics. I really dislike this. And I said, let's rename this from politics to education. I said, think of it this way. Your boss and those leaders are there to make great decisions. Your job is to help them make better decisions. So you need to educate them on how they need to be thinking about whatever you're working on. And all of a sudden I went like, oh, okay, I can educate. That's great. I'm like, great. So now with that reframing, politics is about relationship building to help advance something bigger and more important. And when we think about it in a different way than ick, a lot greater things can happen in how we hold our energy to it.
Oh, that's beautiful because who doesn't, I mean, education has this growth concept. If you loved or didn't love going to school, still you understand what education means.
Yes.
Politics has really negative connotations for most of the people on the planet. I mean,
I-
you think it's corrupt, you think you either love it or you hate it. Whoever's in charge is either the person you want or the person you don't want. So taking politics out and making it, you're just educating that person. That's brilliant. Did you think that up yourself?
who knows what's original these days? I think I did, and it was in the flash of what I called, we would do these coaching sessions, and they were very intense, 15 minutes only. So we had to get to it very quickly. And it was a theme I kept seeing over and over again. And
Yeah.
somehow I was like, this is all about great decision making. And it just came in a way. And it was because of my clients, quite frankly. My ideas come because my clients are in suffering or they're challenged. And so I owe it all to them because they're the ones who spur it. And it's between that chemistry and alchemy that we come to these places that make it easier for them. It's
That's
truly
so
that.
so beautiful. So where can people buy your books?
Well, Amazon, of course, the big, great Amazon. But I think what's even more exciting is hoping that people who are in that middle road, and by the way, so the newest book is called Team Purpose to Performance. Very excited. And it
Oh, say
puts
that again.
every team purpose to performance.
Okay.
And thank you for making me slow down because I get very excited. I'm from the Boston area and I talk fast and all this. Um, the cool thing about this book is you can do the same process as CVS did, and it will be in your hands. And it's a step-by-step guide, similar to the purpose work of these other books. And it's an illustrated guide, so it won't take you, 10 hours to listen to it or anything. You can go through it and go right to the questions that you think are going to help your team break through to get to the next level. It
And
was
so
fun.
this sounds like a great book to have like a big team meeting. Everybody gets the book.
Everybody gets the book and someone goes deeper into it. And we have a digital program that's part of our high potential leader program. They can have access to all the step-by-step behind the scenes if they want more information about it. Because
Oh,
sometimes people can read a book and they can get it. And other times more people I want a little more. I want to talk through this. So we offer that.
yes. And as you know, because you're neurodivergent with your dyslexia,
Yeah.
ta- talk a little bit more about that. The not knowing you're dyslexic till you're 30, how is that even possible?
Oh gosh. I I think it was so here's what happened is that people who have dyslexia, it can show up in a wide range. Mine was very narrow and deep. So if I was in a classroom, auditory learning was a great way for me to get it and perform with it. If it had to be in writing or like being able to read things that I didn't know anything about, I had to work 17 times harder than most people would to have the reading comprehension. So I was able to get through enough and people would wonder, why is she not doing as well on standardized tests or papers? And it
Yeah,
was because I needed extra time, but it wasn't severe enough for them to go, there's something really serious here because it didn't show up in the normal way of like
yeah,
people reversing letters or numbers they can't do. I was actually fairly good at math and the way I speak made people think, oh, she really gets it because I could through the dialogue. So I kind of skimmed, unfortunately, underneath the radar in not a good way until finally it was 9/11 hit. It was a hugely stressful time. I had just had my second child and I hit bottom and I didn't know what was the real undercurrent of it. And I finally started getting help. And it was through that help that that person said, I think you're dyslexic and this is the reason. And then I went and got what's called, the neuropsych testing. And they were like, oh yeah, this is really straightforward. And I'm like, what? And then I went through metacognitive therapy, which is basically a fancy way to talk about how you relearn how to think and process information. So what you all were taught, like with concentric circles and like what's like and different and similar, these were things that I could finally use and how I started to process my information in a very different way. Kind of crazy, but Very
I
helpful.
bet there are so many people out there who have some form of dyslexia and just like you have overachieved in other areas to make up for it. So no one
Yeah.
knows. They don't even know.
Yes.
Wow. But you
It's a
found
very,
a way through this therapy to obviously do better at writing. You're writing books.
the funny part was after I went through the metacognitive therapy, I ended up becoming a technical editor in my field on a particular in a magazine. And I'm like, I don't know how, like I kind of looked at myself and went, oh my God, this works. This is actually, so if any of you are thinking differently, you don't like, if you see a white page and it freaks you out, I use something called MindJet. That was for the PC. I now use Apple products. So I use something called iThoughts and they have a great mind mapping tool. And I can get all my ideas out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it's kind of like if you know about brainstorming and post-it notes, it's like having each idea have a different post-it note.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, you can start organizing and seeing the patterns faster. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can click one button and it will put it in outline format. And I do not have any money invested in this company. I should.
Yeah. So it was called Mind Jet or I Thought.
So MindJet is the one for PCs.
Uh-huh.
And if you have Apple, iThought, although I think iThought they now have a PC version, but both
Okay,
are very good
interesting.
products. They're great products.
And I see you use real sticky notes too.
Oh my gosh, I do a both and. I think there's no one right way to organize one's thoughts. And I have whiteboards, I have stickies, I have bullet journals. I don't know if you ever heard of this. It's just a way
Yeah.
to capture ideas.
Yeah.
Um, and I use it for all different levels of thinking. And that's what I think we have to make is realize every person we work with has a different thought process. They don't think like us. So how
Yeah.
do we understand each other better and our own operating systems? And that's something that we work on in the high potential program is first understanding, do you even know what your own operating system is? How your brain works, how your natural tendencies work, whether it's for you or against you. So
Right,
important.
because I remember learning in a neuro-linguistic programming class years ago that, most people are visual. Some people are auditory
Yes.
learners, so they like to listen. And then there's people that want to, talk about their feelings. And so do you feel that? Do you see that? Do you hear that? Is there another one? I don't remember. But to think that, wait, not everyone, like I'm a visual artist, so
Yeah.
I'm obviously one of the visual learners and the visual people. And I was like, wait, you don't like to doodle when you're talking? What is the matter with you? So it's very interesting when you are in your own world, loving all your own things, that you sometimes can't see what other people do or how they do it or what they need.
It's so true. You're bringing up such a good point. And that was actually in doing the research for this book in terms of what's the science behind it, because my
Mhm.
mode is we should just go with it. But I also know people want science and data to back up the research of this. And I've been collecting it for a long time. And you are spot on. 65% of the population are visual learners. But
Mhm.
yet, how do we create books? Black and white. Like there's no pictures. So how do we communicate on a place that's going to have greater impact? Visuals really help people a lot. They help capture it faster. So you're onto it with your creative work and your art. I'm trying to do the same with these books so that more people can get it. And as clients of mine have said, you're democratizing purpose. I'm making it accessible to wider range of people so that they can have access to it. So it's not just an elite, you get paid $1 million for a program that you're participating in your organization. No, no, no. You can get this and make it accessible. And there's very few out there that are like this. So many books right now are in that black and white, especially around the topic of purpose. So just want to make it easier, make it more
Yeah,
accessible.
and I have a whole bookshelf full of books like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
one of my coaching acquaintances wrote a book called How to Love a Cockroach. First of all, I was drawn in by the image cover because there was a really cool illustration of a cockroach, and I was like, how to love a cockroach? So shout out to this guy. I'll put a link to his book in here. It's basically a book about how to love the icky part of yourself.
Hmm.
But
Beautiful.
interestingly, you know, titled because you're like, wait, what? Is this a cartoon? Is this what is this? But each page has, words and illustrations. And I thought, I read it maybe in 2020. It was just so delightful. I was like, I love this book. I hate this book. I love this book. I hate this book. Uh, but, and
It's
then
great.
there's a very few humans that are really auditory learners. They're the outliers, aren't they? They really need to hear it.
Um, So I don't know the stats on that, quite frankly. I've
Mm.
been focused on the visual because that's the biggest opportunity our society has. And that's why people, when you start looking at your phone and you're like, think about TikTok, or social media, any kind of Facebook, anything that you're looking at, it's a
Yeah.
visual interaction. That's like
Yeah.
stimulus, that's a dopamine fix. So the more we give that, that's why all these big companies are focusing on the social media platforms is the visual connection and the hit we get from it. Some of us, like for books, I have to listen to the books. My son and I were just talking about this. I will get through a business book within a week, a few days. If it's on auditory, 1.25 speed, 1.5, it will
Uh-huh.
sit on my nightstand for months if I have to wait to read to get the front to back.
Yes, I just got a really beautiful book. I'm only a third of the way through it, and I've had it for 6 months. It's an excellent book. Should I listen to it? And then I have one of my sisters is an art teacher, and she reads by listening to 300 books a year.
Wow.
I
Where
know
did she
I don't
walk?
think she
Like,
does.
when does she listen to this?
She's gardening, she's driving, she's in between teaching her art classes at a public art school. She's at whenever she doesn't watch television. Um, she's washing the dishes. She's like, if you want to talk to her, you're like, hey, Anita, you have to tap her on the shoulder. She's like, well, oh, what? What? Oh, I was listening to, I'm reading a book. But that is a lot of listening.
It's a lot of
That's
listening.
extreme. But I think most people could listen to a book a week,
I
right?
try to. I'm not always perfect on that, but I do. I'm always reading, and I have like 6 books going at a time on my nightstand, and I have like another 6 books going in my Audible um, phone
Oh,
because
cool.
and I'm finding that if I don't get through something right away, there's a reason, and I pause. And I used to be an English major. I minored in international relations and French, and the English major in me wants to begin and end that book. And I am
Right.
finally letting go that if it's not intriguing to me and doesn't have me catch it for some reason, it's okay to fast forward or not do it at all. And I am okay with that. It's giving myself
Yeah.
permission.
Yeah.
It's too
Oh, that's
short.
beautiful. Yeah, life is too short to read bad books.
Yeah, right? Like, let's have fun. Let's like enjoy the journey here. So, by all
Yeah.
means, what's your favorite book? Like, what's your favorite one that you've been of recent?
Oh
I,
my gosh. I'm going to walk over to the pile that's going back to the local bookstore and tell you I read a really cool book.
this is going to be interesting. It's a very big book, apparently, or it's a very long walk to a
It's
bookstore.
a novel, The 13th Tale.
Hmm.
And it's not new. It's probably published in, oh my gosh, '06. And it's a used book. So someone bought it for a friend and said, I hope you enjoy it. I haven't read it yet, she says. Dear Stephanie, I haven't read it yet, but the reviews have been good. So the story is this woman who loves books and she's in a bookstore gets this letter and an invitation to her favorite author to do an article, to write a memoir. And she's like, no, this can't be real. And no, I'm not doing it. And then it's a very interesting tale between these two people. And yeah, if you are a writer, I think you'd enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank
What's
you.
your best book that you've read lately?
Uh, the one that popped in my mind, it was a while ago because I'm trying to find it. I was trying to give it to somebody. There's two books. One was called The Magic Library. And
Uh,
this, so I'll give you the business book and the fictional book. Magic
okay.
Library, really good about how you try on different lives and what happens
Ooh,
in trying on different lives. It's a fairly
okay.
fast read. It's very enjoyable. The second one I just finished was called Horse, and it's a Pulitzer Prize winning a book, and it gravitates between the time of slavery and having this amazing horse come into the life of this young man and modern day. And they're all and archaeologically like looking at the physiology of this horse in modern day with a skeleton, but they don't know each other. And then there's a third part. So it's all mixing in. It's brilliantly written, really, really well done. And on a business front, I continue there's three books that I continue to come back to. The first one is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's all about influencing negotiations, which we think, oh, I don't need to do negotiations, but life is negotiations.
Everything's
It's
a negotiation.
everything, right? And
True.
his book is completely opposite to how we think about negotiation. And this
Hmm.
is, I integrate this all into our leadership work as well, which is if you're focused on the gratification of speaking and trying to explain and do this, you're not doing it right. You got to think about the outcome and get all the attention to the other person, get them
Hmm.
talking,
Yeah.
because that's the way that the whole opportunity comes to learn, because people want to speak. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. So ask questions. So that's one of like, I wish this is one of these books that I wish I had read. And I should probably do a TikTok on this. This is one of those I wish I'd read 30 years ago and continue to study all the time. It's
Mm.
that good. And it debunks Getting to Yes, which is a book called by Fisher and
I
Ury.
remember getting to yes because I negotiated out of a relationship when that book was new. I was only reading the book and then thinking, I'm going to use this to break up with Jimmy.
And how did that work for you?
Perfectly.
Good.
It was a good, I mean, was good for me. It was a good ending. We negotiated that we would do this or do that, and who got the truck. It was all awesome.
Perfect. Perfect. Then I would say that was a success. In
Yeah.
modern day negotiations, they're finding people don't want to say yes, they want to say no, which is so strange. But if you get people to say no, it creates more psychological safety for them. Because
Ooh,
when they
ooh,
get,
what a cool concept. People do love to say no. They love to say no in so many ways. I don't know. Let me think about it. That's too much. I don't know if I have the time. My husband won't like it.
so
Wow.
pose questions to help them say no. So like it sounds antithetical to like the opposite of what we should do, but like in sales, you actually want to get them to say no because they'll feel like they have more control. You know, you don't want to buy the green, right? No, I don't want to buy the green. No. Like, but then you know that there's a red one right there. I'm oversimplifying it,
I
but
love it.
there's so many really good pieces to that one.
Okay, you
Yeah,
said the three, you had another business book. Never split the difference.
Never Split the Difference. The second one that I use all the time, and I continue to I'm looking over here because here's my
Yeah.
bookshelf. It's there's a book called The Leadership Pipeline. Now I'm going to give a caveat about this book. This is one of the books that I keep referring to with clients because it's all about how you make the passages from one level to the next. So you go from individual contributor to manager, manager of managers, manager of a function, and manager of an enterprise. I'm simplifying it, but that's in essence what the book is. And
Okay.
each passage, you don't have to read the book cover to cover, but each book, each passage talks about what are the new skills and opportunities you have in this new level and what you have to stop doing.
Oh,
Because,
yes, because that is perfect. What do you have to stop is probably what people forget about.
and they just keep adding on and they keep doing the work of where they
Mm,
used to be, which leads me
yeah.
to the third book that if I find so helpful is a book by William Bridges called Transitions, which
Hmm.
is understanding the difference between change and transition. And change is what happens on the outside. Like one day you're not married, the next day you are. One day you live in Boston, the next day you live in San Francisco. and it's all the things that happen on the outside. But transitions are all the emotions that we go through on the inside, and they are predictive. And there's
Mm,
three. They always start with endings, they go to a neutral zone, and then beginnings. The endings are always about loss, grief, and despair, even if it's a short amount of time.
yes.
We're sad that we have to give up something. Like in our single life, we no longer get to make any decision whenever we want to go somewhere. We now have to have converse with somebody else on that process. So there's a giving up of loss of independence. But then we move to the neutral zone, and that's all about both the loss, it's a paradoxical time, both the loss, but also the excitement of the new beginning. But it's a time of great innovation and also great like creativity, and then we move into the beginnings, which is where the vision is and where the now we're in the new place. We know where the laundromat is. We know where the supermarket is. We know, how to get from A to B to work from our house and then from the office to somewhere else. And all of a sudden there's a new pattern that we don't even think about. But
Yeah.
sometimes we're in the midst of multiple transitions at one time. Multiple endings could be neutral zones and beginnings. And it's when we are in that neutral zone, especially where it's most difficult for people. And we talk through that with our clients because as executives or leaders, you might be at the finish line. We call it the marathon effect, but you're trying to make a change and everyone else is at endings. And you're wondering, why are they not buying in?
Yeah, like come on. They all have to get to the same zone so they can work together, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. That's cool. Well, the
But you
business
brought it
book
up.
I'm reading is this, Mastery. Have you read it? By Robert.
Yes,
Great
he's
book.
fabulous.
Although I should probably listen to it on Audible because I'm only halfway through.
So I listened to that one. It was an Andrew Huberman recommendation, and who he was very influenced
Hmm.
by this work. And it's great. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's a good book for someone who's um, moving up in their career, I think. It
Yeah.
talks about mentorship. I'm stuck in the middle on mentorship right now. And,
Yeah.
how you would have a mentor when you would dump a mentor, when you've gone beyond the mentor and you need
Yes.
a mentor. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It helped validate for me the emotions that I felt during that time where I had loved this mentor, looked so much up to him, and then finally realized I had to move on because it was toxic for me if I
Yeah.
stayed longer in it. And that's what he talked about. I was shocked. It was great. I mean, in terms of what I learned, but
Yeah.
hard through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people do that with all sorts of mentors. And when I do my coaching with people, I say, listen, I don't want you to be my client for life. I
Right.
want to show you how to fish and then go fishing, so to speak. I mean, maybe there's a better metaphor than fishing, but um,
That's a
that's
good one.
that's the idea is
Yeah.
if you have a mentor or a therapist or anybody that you just keep going to for 25 years, that's just wrong. You should fly.
Absolutely. I
And
think
maybe
that,
come back for a tune-up, but fly, 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 fly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was how I knew I was done with one of my therapists is I was repeating myself and I got sick of myself.
I'm sick of this story that I'm telling you every week. I gotta go.
Yeah, it kind of ended up like that. I'm like, okay, it's time to move
Yeah.
on. But it's important to do that work, and you should know when it's time, and so should they,
Oh,
you know.
100%.
And good for you for saying that to your clients because I do this. I feel the same way. I want them to master this, and then if we're going to work together, we're going to work on this. It's not going to be
Yes.
continuing on this.
Yes. Yes. So what's your next thing and how can people find you?
Oh, so I gotta say, I think what I'm most excited about is this emerging high potential leader program, because
Hmm.
this is where they are going to get everything that I've ever taught in this one place that they can go at their own speed. But then we get together with this high potential network of people who are coming in from all different companies. And I bring in guests. I'm going to be bringing, I've already got it lined up. We've got guests that are coming in that I call Fortune 500 Fridays. And so there are leaders coming in. So that you can find me on laurastone.com. And if you want
Cool.
to learn about, you want to get my voice, and I have so much free content on TikTok at Laura Stone Leadership. That's my handle. And that's probably the best way to find me, is one of those two ways. But if you're at all interested, I'd love to talk to you because see if we're a right match. And if we're not, maybe I find someone else who's a better match for you. But we'll start the process.
And your high potential leader program, it sounds like the best mastermind in the world if you're in
If
the corporate
if you're
reality.
in the corporate world, it can be so lonely, and this is where you find your tribe.
Yeah.
It's a safe place, and people are learning together. And we're doing offsites, so we get to come together physically twice a year. And the
What?
intention is not just to be online because people need that connection. And so that's
It's so fun. It's so fun to see someone that you've only met online and then you see them in their human form and you're like, wait, you're taller than I thought you were.
so
Or you're
true.
so much shorter than I thought you were. Yeah, I've had that
Magical.
experience and it's always delightful because you already feel like you know them heart to
Yeah.
heart, but you
Yeah.
don't see their body. You just see their head in this box on your
And
screen.
it's so true. There's nothing like the 3D, but I also feel like it's 4 and 5D, if that makes sense. It's that it's not just seeing someone in the physical, it's their energy.
Yeah.
It's how they carry themselves. It's being able to listen to in between the lines of things that they're expressing that video just doesn't pick up. And
Yes.
there's so much magic in those connections. So we want to build that and have that opportunity for people to connect because we've lost in so many ways since COVID.
Yeah.
People have been hiding behind their computer screens, but also now people are craving that connection. So how do we give
Yes.
it to them? And this is one way. There's multiple ways, but this is one way to make sure people can do that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Laura, it's been so delightful to get to know you more and have you
Well,
here on the podcast. I hope that someone listening is your perfect client.
Well, thank you so much. And I so appreciate you doing this work and you doing the work you do for leaders and people who just are trying to get. I love your doula, helping people manage and get to the next stage. You're birthing their next stage of opportunity too. It's
Right
beautiful
on.
work. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Laura. Appreciate you. Appreciate you saying that. Bye, everybody.